shipyards too. Equipment production for the work we do.
Two nations join to see it through 2000 and beyond.
2000 and beyond.
Hello and welcome to Sheet Metal Workers on the Cutting Edge. Today we've got another very special show. Vince Panvini, the General President's Representative and the Director of Governmental Affairs for the Sheet Metal Workers International Association, is back with us again. Thanks for joining me again, Vince.
Thank you for inviting me back.
All righty. Vince, you've got an impressive career in the sheet metal workers. You've been a member of the sheet metal workers for 35 years, and you've worked your way up through the ranks. You started as an apprentice. You went through the apprentice program. You became a journeyman, trustee, e-board, international organizer, business representative, and now you're the Director of Governmental Affairs for the Sheet Metal Workers International. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know you're doing a very good job because I know everybody talks about you. All the elected officials that I know who you are and are very happy that you're involved in this type of industry that we're in.
Well, thank you, Ronaldo. I believe, and it makes my job easier once you really like what you're doing the legislative and the political work for the Sheet Metal Workers International. When you like it, it makes the job a lot easier. And I know it's a very important job, and it's an honor and privilege to be the representative, legislative and political representative for the sheet metal workers, all the sheet metal workers in this country and in Canada.
And I know that you have a lot of contact with a lot of elected officials throughout the country and even in Canada because, the Sheet Metal Workers International, although we're not one of the largest unions, we are very politically active as far as that goes, and I think that we have a very impressive resume as far as helping candidates get elected or helping them get reelected.
Oh, definitely, Ronaldo. It's not just the money that we raise from voluntary contributions from our members and the money that we give out, but it's the grassroots effort that our members, whether they stuff envelopes, our retirees make phone calls, the phone banks, delivering hand billing, delivering messages and mail to people's houses for the candidate. That's what really counts, and really there's that kind of help is the most important help, and that's the help that make win elections.
Well, true, because it's the individual voter that does help somebody get elected. I mean, just because let's say the Sheet Metal Workers International endorses Al Gore, that's just words. We have to deliver. We have to get our membership out there. We have to inform the membership on why Al Gore or any other candidate is the right candidate that supports us and why we should support them. So yes, grassroots, getting out there, hand billing, house calls, handing out flyers at the ferry terminal or going by the train station, just getting out there and doing all that physical work.
Well, through Labor 96 and Labor 98, and now we're into Labor 2000, building to win, building to last, we found out that one-on-one contact from the local union official to the members on the job or in the shops means so much, especially today with the television and radio ads. It's that individual contact. And through all these focus groups and the polling that we've done, that when the more our members receive flyers at their work site or receive mail from the local union or from their international union, the more contact we had and more education. You can't tell people how to vote.
No.
You have to educate them on the issues, and you have to, list what the candidate that we support, what they support, and what their opponent supports. I think the average rank and file member or any working person is smart enough to realize who's on their side and who's not.
Well, it may be so, but there are a lot of individuals that don't realize because, during a campaign, they get hit with all kinds of different statements and, they kind of cloud the issues. Where, like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. Here in New York City, New York State, actually, the U.S. Senate race between Hillary Clinton and Rick Lazio. One of the things that are clouding the actual issues are the statements that are made that, she's an outsider. She wasn't raised in New York. She's not really a New Yorker. And I think that you have to look beyond that. Is she the best candidate for working men and women? And the answer is yes.
Oh, definitely. And not being born and raised here, Hillary Rodham Clinton isn't the first candidate ever to run a New York Senate race.
That's right.
I mean, you had Robert Kennedy, who ran and won. And you also had the Republican candidate, William Buckley, who wasn't a resident, ran and won as a Republican. So it doesn't matter where, when you look at the United States of America and you look at that harbor, you see the Statue of Liberty. We are a nation of immigrants.
Right.
And, everybody can't have the privilege and the pleasure of being born in New York State or where I come from. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So you elect the best person who can do the job. And when you look through all the facts and figures, Hillary Rodham Clinton is the best person to represent working people in the state of New York.
We know that, but we have to get that message out, and that's where the grassroots effort has to begin. We have to get that message out, and if we do and we deliver, she'll be in.
Well, it's important that even though the last 7 years, 7.5 years that we had great progress and prosperity. There's the issue of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The right wing, the Republican right wing, radical right wing of the Republican Party has controlled the House and the Senate for the past 6 years.
Right.
And their contract on America that they brought in 6 years ago, nobody even wants to talk about that now because a lot of the leaders who led that revolution aren't here now. Newt Gingrich, Bob Livingston in Louisiana, and a lot of other ones. Through the collective unity of workers throughout the country, through Labor '96, Labor '98, now Labor 2000, we were able to reduce that 22-seat majority in the House in '96. Cut it down to 11, and then in '98 cut that 11-seat majority down to 5 seats, and then you had one Democrat that switched to being independent. So now you got to take back 6 seats in Virginia. So winning back the House of Representatives is probably one of the most important things that we have to do, and to get the Democrats in control again. And to bring honor and dignity back to that speaker. People don't realize that the Speaker of the House is probably the most important person when it comes to legislation in this country. Because when you're the Speaker of the House, you set the agenda in the House of Representatives. Uh-huh. You could have the greatest bill in the world, whether if you're in the minority party, but it's the Speaker that controls the agenda whether to bring that bill up or not. And that's why it's important that we win back the House and make Dick Gephardt as Speaker of the House and bring back dignity to working for working people in this country, not the special interest.
Okay, so it certainly is a direct challenge. As far as I'm concerned, it's a direct challenge to working people, whether they're in the union or not. We have to let our voices be heard, and the only way that we could do it is through that ballot box. So we have to get out there and vote the right way.
Well, when you talk about that, when you're a union representative, you not only represent our union members, but we set the agenda for the non-union workers too.
That's right.
Because when we don't do good, they don't do good.
Mm-hmm.
The employer won't give them raises. If we're not getting raises. So,
right.
It's that old spinning wheel. And if you see throughout the country, in the last 6.5 years. I mean, we're busy all over the country. I mean, cranes and construction, we're booming, and we're organizing, and through this shortage of skilled people, I know your local union here has organized, I guess, in the past year, about 650 new members, and Local 28 is doing a great job. And Ronaldo, I know you're the organizer here. You're probably one of the most important persons Local 28 has now, organizing and helping other people, give them a better life.
Yeah.
And bringing them non-union sheet metal workers into the middle class. And it's important that people know that.
It's one of the most gratifying jobs when you get a phone call from a newly organized member to thank you for giving them the opportunity, and the family. Our family thanks you and your local union. And again, that makes it all worth it. It's very difficult to do what we do, and you know that because you were an organizer. So, it's very gratifying when you get those new members calling you.
Well, that's what we're talking about. That's when we go back to politics, okay? Because if you have a Democrat in the White House, Al Gore, and I think Al Gore is going to win because he's the most qualified person for the job, and you get a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, then you could change. This country drastically needs labor law reform. I mean, it's so hard. The balance on the scales is so tipped to the corporations and the employers, and they bring these non-union lawyers in there, anti-union union busters in, and they spend $700-800 an hour for to hire these people, and just to keep the union out.
I know.
And that's why we desperately need labor law reform.
That's right.
And that's why we got to take back the House and take back the Senate. And New York State has one of the most important Senate races going in the whole country with Hillary Rodham Clinton and Rick Lazio.
Well, the seat has been a Democratic seat for a while. We just have to keep it a Democratic seat. It has to be done.
I think that Hillary Rodham Clinton's campaign throughout the state, I think the more she's out there and the people meet her, I mean, you hear all these horror stories about her. 99% of them are false. But once the people in the state meet her, they like her. She's a genuine person, and she's a very intelligent person. And I think she'll do a great job for the people in New York and the rest of the people in this whole country as a senator, U.S. senator from the state of New York.
I know she will. Speaking of Clinton, you brought a video of the president.
Yes, last August at our 40th General Convention in Las Vegas, the president couldn't address the convention, our delegates, so he made a tape, and I think it's very interesting, and I like this for the people of New York to see that tape that President William Jefferson Clinton made for the sheet metal workers for our General Convention last August. Okay,
so why don't we watch that tape, and we'll be back right after this.
I'm honored to have this opportunity to thank you, the men and women of the Sheet Metal Workers International Association, for all your support for me and the Vice President over the last 6.5 years, and to salute you for your outstanding work on the occasion of your 40th convention. President Harry Truman once said that whenever labor does well, the whole country does well. As usual, he was right. Over the past 6.5 years, labor and American workers have done remarkably well. We have nearly 19 million new jobs, the longest peacetime expansion in history, the highest home ownership in history, the lowest minority unemployment rate ever recorded, the lowest welfare rolls in 30 years, the lowest crime rate in 26 years. The bounty we enjoy today is due in no small measure to your hard work. You have been at the front lines of our prosperity, helping to build the towering office buildings and the great naval vessels that have carried our men and women around the world. Your skill and hard work are at the foundation of our economic growth. As you know, for the last 6.5 years, our administration has made it clear that we are pro-family, pro-union, and pro-worker. Together, Vice President Gore and I and our whole team have stood strong against attempts to repeal prevailing wage laws or to bring back company unions or to weaken workplace health and safety laws. We protected pension funds and health benefits, raised the minimum wage, and most recently, we're working to make sure that vendors who consistently violate the law aren't eligible for federal contract awards. Now we're working together to make sure we use America's new budget surplus to invest in our future, to save Social Security, to strengthen and modernize Medicare, including a prescription drug benefit, to invest in the education of our children, and to pay off the national debt for the first time since 1835. I want to emphasize that we can do this and still have a tax cut targeted to middle-class people, for retirement savings, for child care, for long-term care, and we can give tax incentives for people to invest in the neighborhoods of our country which still haven't felt this recovery. I know that's important to all of you. So let's put first things first. Let's put our people first. Let's make America strong in the next century as we all continue our fight for better jobs, stronger unions, and higher wages. Thank you again for all your friendship and support to me and to our administration. Thank you for all your hard work. Enjoy your convention.
You know, that was a great video, and, you know, just thinking about the president, you know, this past August at the convention, you know, he quoted Harry Truman, and I'll tell you, what he said hit it right on the money. He said, you know, if you want to live like a Republican, you have to vote Democratic, and, you know, that's so true, so true.
Oh, I think the president hit the nail right on the head. I mean, he gave we were at the Democrat National Convention, and Monday night, his speech to the American people was magnificent because he just traced back over the last 7.5 years what the Clinton-Gore administration had done for to the American people, and another one of his quotes was using what some of his Republican friends said years ago: "Are you better off today than you were 8 years ago?" And the answer is definitely yes.
Yeah.
America has probably had the best economy in the history of this country the last 7.5 years under the Clinton-Gore administration.
Well, why don't we talk about some of those accomplishments, and, you know, and why we have to keep this going?
Well, you know, we probably could have done better if the radical right-wing Republicans didn't take office in '94 when they took control of the House and the Senate, and their contract on America that they publicized so much. You don't even hear a whisper of that in Washington, D.C. And it's very ironic. A month ago at the Republican National Convention, they wouldn't even allow any Republican congressman or senator, especially the leadership, the right-wing leadership of the Republican in the House and Senate, even to appear on prime time at their convention. But at the Democrat National Convention, you had all this the leadership in the Senate and the House, speak on prime time to the American people.
Yeah.
And just to go back a little bit, in the last 6 years, that the contract on America was a plan devised by the right wing, all these think tanks that these big corporations and billionaires have in Washington, D.C., and they tried to attack every right that organized labor established in the last 50 years.
Well, we call that a contract on America, but they were calling it the contract for America, and, what it really was a contract on working people.
No question about it, Ronaldo. And some of the stuff, some of the anti-worker, anti-family, anti-union legislation that they tried to pass was, just to go back, first thing they tried to do was get rid of the Davis-Bacon. For people who don't know about Davis-Bacon, building trade people do know, it's the federal prevailing rate in the area. Well, they tried to repeal that. Then the next thing they tried to do was to bring back company unions with the TEAM Act. You have they have a beautiful way of phrasing everything. And then they try to get a national right-to-work bill. That, if you look throughout the country, the states that have right to work are probably the states that have the lowest wages per income through the country.
Well, let's look at Texas.
Oh, Texas, minimum wage, it's like $3.35 an hour. Another thing that Governor Bush and the Contract on America to try to do to us 6 years ago was the Paycheck Protection Act, which started in California, Proposition 226, and that was another Paycheck Protection Act, but we called it, organized labor called it the Paycheck Deception Act.
Right.
And when, to go back, when people first heard about it, 71% of the people supported it until we educated not only our members, but also the people, the American public. Started in California, and then they had these state ballot initiatives and ballot questions on 32 states throughout the country in '98, and we defeated these Paycheck Protection Acts in 32 states that they were introduced. And that was through grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
That was about educating our members and also educating the American public, because we don't only just represent union workers, we represent all workers.
That's right, and they're always constantly attacking, labor unions, and I know that I always hear George Bush, the governor, always refer to union officials as union bosses. He's always putting that negative spin on it. Union bosses. What's that all about?
That's just a slogan they try to pin on the leadership of the unions, whether you're local union leadership or international leadership. It's that's how they do business, but unions are the greatest form of democracy anywhere in this country.
And, unionism in this country, as far as organized labor is concerned, we're a very small percentage of the total overall workers in the United States, a very small percentage. Upwards, I think we're about 22%, something like that, throughout.
I think it's a little lower than that, probably closer to about 16, 17%.
Oh, well then, then they must really fear us, because if we're only about 16 to 17% of the workforce,
Well, I think, Ronaldo, that we get it, that back in '94 with the Contract on America, when they tried to get rid of us, we were like the last foxhole for all working people.
Mm-hmm.
And they get it too, because with all this legislation that they try to pass, bad anti-worker, anti-family, anti-union legislation, they get it too, because if they would get rid of unions, that Paycheck Protection Deception Act was a clever disguise to try to take, organized labor out of the legislative and political process. That would only affect us, nobody else, not the corporations, not big business,
Right.
just, it's unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
And we beat it back in 32 states. And some of the other anti-family, anti-worker, anti-union legislation was the comp time bill. Sounds nice. They rather give you off instead of paying you overtime. It would eliminate it, the 40-hour work week, get rid of overtime.
Right.
We defeated that. Then they wanted to make, workers in a company independent contractors. Another scheme to get the employer from paying unemployment insurance, workers' comp insurance, Social Security,
Right.
that put the emphasis back on the worker.
Yeah.
So they spend probably billions and billions of dollars with these radical
Angles.
right-wing think tanks in
Yeah.
Washington, D.C., how to destroy unions and keep the working people under the thumb. And just with this great prosperity that we're having, the Vice President wants to give, back middle income a tax break, and also strengthen Social Security, Medicare, and give our seniors prescription drugs that they really need, patient bill of rights, make sure people get health insurance, and also strengthen our educational system that building and repairing the schools and hiring more teachers. I mean, that's probably one of the most important things that has to be done in this country. And while Governor Bush and Dick Cheney, the only thing they want to give a $1.6 trillion tax cut for the next 10 years to the richest 10% of the people in the whole country. I mean, 60% of their tax cut goes to the richest 10%.
And where does that leave us?
Back, trying to strive for a job. I just believe that they don't like a lot of this prosperity because there's a lot of jobs out there, and they really don't like people having a lot of work. And
Well,
this way, working people can bargain for higher wages.
exactly.
And better benefits.
That's the whole thing. When workers are in demand, you have a better shot to organize, wherever you work, and organized labor could get stronger. And we have to seize this opportunity because we haven't had this opportunity in many, many years to go out and organize workers into our unions.
Well, it's just like all over the country right now. Are organizing the Sheet Metal Workers International along with all our local unions. I mean, we have hundreds of organizers out there, and it's not just benefiting our union members, but it's also benefiting the non-union sheet metal workers out there because we're growing, we're stripping the best that they have, bringing them into the union, and their wages of the non-union people are going up too.
Sure, they have to
because
go up.
there is a shortage of skilled people, and we're the only ones that train our people. The non-union, the ABC, Associated Building Contractors, who Dick Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, who owns Brown and Root, the biggest anti-union construction company in the world.
Right.
Who have atrocious records on safety and delays. It's a terrible company. And we're the only ones that train the people, whether it's sheet metal workers or electricians or carpenters and sheet metal workers. And along with our local unions, we spend over $50 million a year training our apprentices and upgrading our journey people throughout the country to make them skilled people.
Okay. All right, Vince, once again, we're running out of time. So I want to thank you for coming on again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And once again, you're always welcome on the show.
It was my pleasure, Renato, and hopefully you'll have me back again.
I will. And finally, my message to all workers. Organize, yes you can.
We're marching to the beat of the Union drum into the new millennium. And what a long, hard way we've come, 2000 and beyond.
An honest job for a decent wage was the dream of 1888, and it makes us stronger every day, 2000 and beyond.
2000 and beyond. Our union standing strong with dignity and pride in the work we do. And though the road ahead is long, we move today as one into the future, 2000.